Anyway, no intro and all of that nonsense, man.
We didn't
Just
like
get
and
to it.
subscribe, like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah,
Just
all of that
friend,
nonsense.
one of them ones. You did one of them intros. I need
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Drink Champs intro, bro.
Nah.
I need the Drink Champs intro.
You
Don't
just
forget
get
to
to
like,
it, man.
comment, subscribe.
Joe
Yeah,
Rogan
I need
style,
to
man.
like,
Just
comment, and
start commenting.
subscribe, bro, and
Just start speaking, man.
Yeah, I'm good.
But yeah, anyway, we're supposed to do this live on YouTube, but it wasn't letting me be great today. I didn't realize that you have to give it 24 hours notice, so we're doing it like this instead. So anyway, I'm Jermaine. You two want to introduce yourself?
Yes.
I'm the FBAInvestor, aka John Rambo, aka Ryan.
Yeah, exactly, man. So we're gonna start a new show. Probably, I don't know, maybe fortnightly, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And it's called Yard Game. So it's basically a property show, UK based, no script, just freestyling. That's just how we're gonna do it. So
Cool me.
I don't really have experience in property game. That's why I brought Yas in. He's deep in the game. For how many
The
years?
guru, the man.
Yeah, that's the guru right there.
Nah, I'm not a guru, bro. I'm just a guy.
Mr. Miyagi, man.
Guy. No, I'm just a normal
Miyagi,
guy.
man.
No, I'm just a normal guy. Just over 10 years now.
And
just
that's
over
in
10 years I've been doing it. Just in general, I work in property. Like my day job is in property, and then owning property. Similar amount of time, year or two less, maybe, a similar amount of time.
What got you into property game?
Accident. To be honest with you, accident. My brother had a job at an estate agent, and then my mum was getting on to me about getting a job. So accident is like the easiest thing to do is get a job from your older brother. It was one of them ones. Just
that's it.
Brother hooks you up with the interview and gives you a good word, and that's it. That was like I say, it was just an accident. There was no plan into it. And then when I got here, then I saw the money that could be made fairly easily with zero qualifications, zero experience. Just if you just grind, if you just like hard work, if you're just down to work hard, basically, you don't. That's the only thing that matters. You don't need degrees. You don't need GCSE. You don't need anything at all. Which I didn't have, so it was fairly straightforward for me. And then, like I said, my bosses were driving Porsches and Ranges and whatever else. So it was.
Is that like you now?
Fairly sensible. Nah, definitely not me now. I'm frugal. I'm frugal, but I like the idea of that you're able to afford a Porsche is enough for me to get me involved. I don't necessarily need the Porsche, but the idea that if I can do the job that allows me to afford one, that just means I can spend it on other things. But yeah, that was, like I said, it was just at maybe 20, 21, something like that. 2021. Like I said, it was just accidentally landed in it, and then just realized that I was good at it. From a work perspective, realized I was good at it, and then, like I said, I've just been.
What does it take to be good in the property game, though?
It depends. If it's from like an agency perspective, then it's it's sales. It's basic sales. It's basic sales, and sales, to me at least, sales is psychology. The basics of sales is getting somebody to do something that you want them to do without them knowing that you want them to do it. So it's I need you to want to do this, as opposed to me pushing you into it. I'm never going to be able to push anybody into taking property. Whereas if I just explain the benefits of something, then we're dealing with adults. If I explain the benefits of something, then adults can make decisions by themselves, and adults generally make better decisions when they have information as opposed to when they're pushed. So that was my theory. It's not in my nature to be pushy or rude. So yeah, I'll be honest. I'm down to work harder than everybody. That was the main thing. In the early years, I didn't take a holiday for 3 years. I didn't have a day off for 3 years. 1 year, I remember it was my mum's birthday. I had a half day, took her to the aquarium, and was back in the office for 2.
Game is the game, man.
No, it's when you work in a commission job, you get this. You're nervous to not be at the phone. You're nervous to not be on your emails because there can be a deal that's done or something that's happening that you're not involved in. So yeah, for the first maybe 3.5 years, like I said, I didn't do anything, and then I realized that I needed to. It was counterproductive. So yeah, it was helping me that I was there, but I was burning myself out. So it's just now it's more balance in hard work, but taking time off to recharge and break and whatever else.
All right. What about you, Ryan?
Me, I'm the opposite of a guru here. I'm very inexperienced in this field. I just ended up. I bought a place in January of when was it? Was it this year? This year. Yeah, it's just time flies. This year, January 2022. So I bought a place mainly because I just had to do it. Basically, there was a lot of pressure from not necessarily family and stuff, but like I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I always wanted a property. And basically, the time frame where I had enough capital. It was a little bit of a stretch getting all the legals and all that bits in, but I just basically for the first time in my life had liquid cash there available, and I just said, why not? Do you know what I mean? I can put this off and kind of play this game a little bit more, or I can just jump in. I just thought, while I've got it, before I end up spending it on something else, let me just put it down on the house. So that's what I ended up doing. So yeah, just one house, so nothing major, and yeah, I got some tenants in there now. So far so good. One moved out. Another one moved in, but yeah, so far it's been relatively stress-free. The fence did blow down. I had to repair, and the boiler went once, and I had to get that repaired. But part of the game of being a landlord, so can't really complain. That's it. But yeah, hopefully, first of May. It is what it is, baby. It is what it is, and hopefully, yeah, this is like the first of May. I've got a plan. It sounds a bit crazy, but I want to get a house every year from now until like 2030. So we'll see how that goes. I'm hopeful. So yeah,
what area specifically? Are you looking at the same place or?
Yeah. So I bought in Hertfordshire, and I'm looking at building because I was looking at Derby and Nottingham because they have really good yields, but the actual house price itself isn't too bad. So you can get like, let's say a two bed.
Wait, let's put just in case anybody doesn't understand what a yield is. Anyone want to?
Yeah, sure. So yield. Yeah, sure. So yield is essentially the return that you get on your property. So think of yield as your yearly rental income divided by the cost of the house, and then times by 100 to give it a percentage. That's the yield. So it's essentially the percentage that you get back based on the actual value of the property or what you paid for actually at the time. So that's the yield. So typically, like the apartment I rent in London has a really poor yield. So I feel like the closer you get to London, the yields go really bad, but then the capital appreciation goes crazy. So like this apartment, she's getting like 1.
Yeah, the yield here is maybe 3.5-4%.
Yeah, like my yield is like max 2%,
which is
it's nothing, right?
And new builds is 2.5-3%. I think is average for London across as a whole. Whereas when you step into countryside, it's 7 to 12.
Yeah, exactly. Like Liverpool's
if you're doing it as a standard, just a standard family unit, one tenancy, buy to let, not HMOs and etc. If you're just doing standard tenancy, you can get between 7 and 12.
But then if you get into like HMOs, it's like 20.
Yeah, then it's different. But then you also, so the yield is based off purchase price. Whereas if you buy a house for 100 grand and you put 20 in and you borrow 80, you haven't spent 100 grand. You spent 20.
Yeah.
So the actual return on your investment is the 20 plus any fees and stamp duties, etc. But if we're just basing it, just keep it simple. Your yield is based off the 20 that you've actually invested, because the 80 the other 80 is not yours, and generally it's going to be an interest only mortgage, so it's the 80 is never going to be yours. So it depends on how you wanted to see it. Obviously, if you're basing it off the deposit amount, then the yield is much higher. 30s can be 30%. You can get your money back in 3 years gross. At least you can get your gross back in 3 years. So yeah,
Crazy.
it just depends on how you see it. But generally, most landlords will base their yield off the property value as opposed to the actual money that they put in.
Yeah, 100%. I was thinking of that as like just a regular buy-to-let as well. So like not even like doing a refurbishment. But if you think about things like PRRs, like some of these guys get all their money out, you know, when they remortgage the property. Like, wow, you just got a house for free.
Exactly. No, there's different. If you get it right, then there's a lot of different methods that you can use to make money, and quite a lot of money. I say not easily, but in a fairly quick fashion, with some quite a lot of headaches, but it's worth it. If you, like I said, if you hit a good move, then it's worth it.
100%.
All right.
100%, man.
Right. So let's see. I got a question. So if someone's new to the property game, and let's say they've got 20K, give her around 20K, 20 to 30K. They're just stepping in, never stepped in the game before. What would you recommend?
It's difficult. You know, everything is nuanced.
Without your own bias, of course. Just...
No. Of course, no bias. Just everything is nuanced. It depends on each individual person. If the person's somehow is lucky enough to get 30 grand and live at home with their parents, maybe, and don't necessarily have to work, and their parents are happy to just help them out, then they can treat it as a job, and that can be what they're doing in the day. Whereas if you've got a full-time job, it's very difficult to do certain things in property in areas like.
All right, let's assume they got a full-time job as well.
Yeah, let's say like we're all from London, and 20K in London's not going to get you anything. So you need to go to country. So if you go to country with 20, it's very difficult to manage that from London. So that's why I say it depends on the circumstances. The best thing I would say to do, if you're trying to get cash flow, then just a buy to let. You can put 20 down and go to like Rambo was saying, you can go to different parts of the country and get 8 to 10, 12% back cash flow. Fairly straightforward. You buy a house, you put 20 down. Again, including fees, you put 20 down, you buy the house for 60, 70.
Any areas you would recommend?
I'll be honest, I don't know enough about the whole of England. I don't follow the whole of England from what's up and coming. I would say, again, it depends on your strategy. If you're wanting student lets, then that's a strategy. You go to Hull, you go to Leeds, you go to Northampton, you go to Leicester, somewhere where there's a big uni, and you run it like that. If you're looking for growth, then you need to have some kind of gentrification in the area, some kind of regeneration. Some kind of regeneration that's happening in the area. If you're looking for just a standard buy-to-let, then you're just looking yields. You're just basing it purely off yields, and people rent properties in all over the country. So you don't necessarily need the busiest place or the close to the town or close to the train station, because someone's going to take it. So it depends. Like I said, it depends on what you're looking for. And usually when you go out of London, a lot of the smaller towns in London, like my family are from out of London, so a lot of the smaller towns out of London, they don't tend to move the same way that Londoners move. Like Londoners generally move house. They don't tend to move house. The average tenant might stay in London in a place for a year or two, whereas in Yorkshire, they might stay there. That's their home now. That's where they're staying for 10 years, 15 years. So yes, you're not getting capital growth, but you're getting a fairly straightforward tenancy where the person is just generally just going to be there. Just going to be there for an extended period of time. So like I said, it depends on different circumstances. It depends on different circumstances. I would just say, think about what the goal is, how much time you have, how much energy you have, how much effort you want to put into it, and then you can base it. And then you can base it from So I just have to plug myself in, and then you can base it from that. But if I was to do it myself, I would be looking to find something. I would try and find a big one bed with a I'll try and find a big one bed with a separate kitchen.
Yeah.
For maybe 50, which sounds, again, if you're from London, 50 sounds crazy, but it's 100% realistic. In a lot of places in the country, I'd find a big one bed with a separate kitchen, do some basic works with the change that I've got left over, put the kitchen into the front room, make it open plan, make the kitchen a bedroom, and then now I've now got a 2-bed flat, so I can either flip it, again depending on strategy, I can flip it and sell it for the price of a modernized 2-bed flat.
Yeah.
Or I can rent it, again based off and my yield will be a lot higher because my purchase price was the purchase price of a 1-bed with obviously with the refurb, but the money put in is based off a refurbed 1-bed price, but I'm getting the rental value of a 2-bed. So that's what I would do if I had between 20 and 30. But like I said, flipping or renting, it depends on it basically depends on how quickly you can get the next 20. It depends on if you can get the next 20 or 30 in a year to 18 months, then you might just want to hold it. And like Rambo said, just build up a few and keep it as cash flow. If you're trying to make this your thing now, this is what I want this to be my day job, then you flip it and try to make bread off it quickly. But the issue with that is that that's when you start paying capital gains taxes, and it's you need to be a lot more sensible with your you need to be a lot more sensible with the pricing, with the prices that you're getting in at and the prices that you're selling it at, because now you're getting taxed on what is already a small amount of money.
Okay. All right. So for the next 5 years or so, do both of you have any plans in the property game? So from now to 20. In fact, let's go to 2030. Let's go a bit longer term. Now until 2030.
The only thing for me that I would probably get involved in right now would be either something similar to what I just said. If there's a fairly straightforward, can get a 1 and turn it into 2 fairly easily, or get a 2 and turn it into 3 fairly easily. It would have to be on my lap for me to do that. Other than that, it would be some form of a development. That would be the only thing that I'd be looking at, is either turning a house into splitting it into flats, or buying land and building on the land. That would be the only 2 things. Me personally, that'd be the only 2 things that I would get involved in. It's not to say that you can't make money other ways.
Any reason for that?
Scalability. Just for me, I'm at a certain place in my life where I don't have the time to or necessarily the want anymore to run just a standard buy-to-let portfolio. Like I've got it, but that's not what I'm not trying to add to it one every couple of years. It needs to be a jump from 5 to 10 to 20 to 50, which when you're doing it by the single property, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while, because like you said, you need 20 or 30, and depending on how quickly you can make 20 to 30k, it's going to take you a fair amount. Whereas if you develop it, or you're buying, like I said, you're buying a house and splitting it into 3 or 4 flats, that's 4 flats with 1 purchase. And then you do that again in 12 months, 18 months, 2 years. Now you've gone, in that space of 2 years, you've gone from 0 to 8 or 0 to 10, or depending on how aggressive you are.
But how much would you need to get a development going, do you think, in comparison?
It depends on what you're doing, but it'd be a lot. It's not going to be 20 or 30. 20 or 30 is not going to work. 20 or 30 is a quick, like I said, you buy a 1-bed, you turn it into 2. You buy a 2-bed, you turn it into 3. Because that's relatively cheap. You can do liquor paint, new carpets, move the kitchen, modernize a bathroom, and you're good. So that would be depending on the budget to buy houses that you can split into flats. that's that's a different amount. You're talking about hundreds. You're going to need hundreds to do something like that, at least, because it's a lot of effort, because you still need to pay the mortgage while the whole development's happening. And developments it's not a 2 or 3 month thing. You need to pay all the costs. You need to pay the mortgages. You need to pay planning. You need to sort planning. Sorry, you need to do all of that stuff while you're not creating any money, because there's no capital, because it's a building site for 12 months or 18 months. So it's a building site. So you're not actually making any money from it. You're making it hoping that you can double your money, or 150% or 200% your money on the capital growth. So the 20% that you've spent maybe in the upkeep during that time is offset massively by the double that you've made, or the triple that you've made. So it's, like I said, it's just a different. It's a slightly higher level to it.
Okay. And Ryan?
Yeah, no, me, I'm the opposite 18, so I'm trying to get the single buy-to-lets going. So basically, my goal is I don't want my missus to work, so I'm trying to get her salary and cash flow. So that's my thing, right? So I figured I'm in Hertfordshire, right? So I'm probably need about 3 houses there to do that. So that's my goal. So I want to get to 3 houses, and then I'm down to do all the crazy stuff that 18 was talking about. So get into kind of like, even now, like with my house, I know we talked about in the group about like,
and that's free with 25% down, or?
Yeah, 25% down, 3 houses, like they're like kind of 400k kind of mark, so like 100 grand down on each one. And if I can do like one of those for the next kind of 2 or 3 years and then build it up, each one like positive net cash flow on like a 75% loan to value. So just to flip back, 75% loan to value being I've used 75% of the bank's money and 25% of my money. So essentially I only put down 25% in the house. This is a typical buy to let mortgage, is 25% down. At that price, each one would cash flow around, I think, between £500 and £700. So that basically is like what my missus makes a month times 3. And yeah, that's the goal. And then, you know, what I want to do is I want to make her kind of run the yards in terms of like almost like a mini letting agency. And then as we build up, kind of take on like more people's stuff and kind of just give her something to do, because she works in student accommodation at the moment. So she kind of deals with like thousands of tenants as it is at the moment. So I just want to give her that, but on like a smaller scale kind of thing.
So let me just throw this out there then. So if it's 100k property and you could get, and your plan is to get 3, so then that would be 300k. So wouldn't you think, would you be interested in a development and then say it was like 1.2 mil, and then you put down 300k instead of the properties?
Yeah, 100%. For me personally, I don't feel like I have the experience. I probably could have the capital to put into it if we were splitting it like a JV kind of thing, like joint venture.
Yeah.
But me personally, I wouldn't know where to start with that, to be honest.
It's too big of a it's too big of a job. It's too big of a job, and again, buying a development ready made, or buying a block of, say, if I build a block of 4. So if I build a house and I split it into 4, and then Rambo buys the 4 off me, he's buying it at cost.
Yeah.
So in theory, from a financial perspective, so from an ease perspective, it's easier for him because all 4 of his flats are next door to each other. But he's buying them at cost. From a financial perspective, it actually makes no difference whether he buys 4 in the same house or 4 on different roads, or it's returning the same amount, getting them at cost. So the only way to do it from that perspective is to either build it yourself or refurb and redesign yourself. Or, like I said, you just buy 3 at 400 and just do them individually. Like I said, it's the single homes or single flats, single houses or single flats. If your plan is to have a few, and that's going to subsidize your salary, or Mrs. salary in this case, going to subsidize your Mrs. salary, then it works. That works fine. There's no, like I said, having them next to each other in the same building, same road, even the same area, doesn't change the fact of the money coming in. If you need to net 700, you only buy deals that net you 700. So whether that's in Hertfordshire, Berkshire, Surrey, London, I'm only buying deals that net me this amount. So it doesn't make a difference. Essentially, it doesn't make a difference where it is, other than ease.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I got 2 questions. Let me find.
Hit me.
What's your plan, Jermaine? Let's flip it back on you.
Oh, first one, personal property. So that I need to get that next year. Then I had the same plan as you actually, to get a couple buy-to-lets, probably up north. Like I was in Liverpool recently, Manchester as well. Seemed like decent areas, but then I thought, I don't know if I want the hassle of managing so many different places with, different tenants and different
Get an agent to manage it.
problems, and then this boiler goes and that fence goes, and then I don't know if I want that.
That's one of the
stress.
negatives. That's one of the negatives with property. Is that
So if I had the peas,
if
it
you
would
have,
be like a big development.
well, for instance, if you buy stock,
Yeah.
if you put 20 bags in stock, and the stock goes down, your money is lower, but you haven't actually paid out any money. So your investment is down, but you haven't actually paid out. Whereas if you put 20k into a house and then the boiler breaks next week, you have to physically come out of pocket for that 4k. Or if your fence breaks, you have to come
And
out.
if the boiler costs you 4k, that's basically the whole year's
rent.
I had both of them problems in the first year of ownership.
This is exactly.
But yeah, I guess you have to remember it's a long-term game, isn't it? So
No. It's a long game. Yeah. The way, like I said, property is it's a cash flow. It's a cash flow business, but anything that's a cash flow business means that it flows in and out.
Yeah.
Whenever there's cash flow, it will flow in and it will flow out. So you get rent, but if you're planning to own properties for 10, 15, 20 years, you have to refurb that property. And I don't mean refurb liquor paint. You have to, at some point, you need to put a new kitchen in and you need to put a new bathroom in. Because your kitchen and bathroom today in 10, 15 years is not going to be the same kitchen and bathroom. And that kitchen and bathroom is going to cost 20 or 30 to put in. And that's being conservatively, it's going to cost you, in London at least, or close to London, it's going to cost you 20 or 30 conservatively. So you need to then factor that into your P&L, profit and loss. You need to factor that into your profit and loss of the maintenance costs of running property and of having property and running a portfolio. But from what you were saying, I'll be honest, you just pay, if you're doing it in Liverpool, because you're not from Liverpool, you just pay an agent. You just get a managing agent up there. Managing agent, you can probably get somebody to manage it. I couldn't tell you exactly, but you could probably get someone to manage it for you for 5%, which is
that of the gross or
5%? Yeah, 5% of the rent, but you can offset the fees.
Okay.
You offset the fees against your tax deductible.
So let's say you're getting what, 500 a month.
You get 1,000. So you get 1,000 rent, hypothetically. To keep it simple, you get 1,000 rent. You give them £50.
Okay, yeah, it's not bad.
It's nothing. You give them £50. They find the tenants for you. They'll manage the property. Again, it might be. So we'll keep it simple at 5%. It might be 7% or something. It's not going to be a lot. They find a tenant. They manage it. Obviously, if any issues come up, you have to pay for them. But manage the work. They'll book the contractors. They'll get the quotes. They'll book it in with the tenants. You don't speak to your tenant. Your tenant knows your name off the contract. That's the only way. That's the only relationship that you have with your tenant, is your tenant knowing your name off the contract. They don't have your phone number. They don't have your email address.
Yeah.
So
no, it sounds good.
You're paying for the convenience. So that's what I would probably advise doing. Again, especially if you're doing it 4 hours drive. What realistically, what are you going to do if your tenant calls you and says, "I've got a leak"? You're not from Liverpool.
Make that drive,
yeah, you're not from Liverpool.
It was long enough that one time.
No, but that's what I'm saying. From Liverpool, you don't know plumbers in Liverpool. So all that's going to happen is they're going to call you for a leak, and then you're just going to Google plumbers in Liverpool. You don't know if the plumber's any good. You don't know anything. You just Google plumbers in Liverpool and call the top one. Call the top one and the top two, see which one's cheaper and send them over. Where that could work, but it's not a sustainable thing when you're basing it off. If we're trying to scale to the level that we all want to scale to, 10, 20, 50, 100 properties, it's not realistic to just Google plumbers in Liverpool and call them. Like, there needs to be some kind of sensible plan.
Yeah, there needs to be some kind of sensible plan, or a professional, or at least, like Rambo said, where your partner can dedicate my time. I can dedicate my time to this. It's not necessarily, like I said, it doesn't have to necessarily be a professional, but it can just be someone who has the time to dedicate to it.
And they handle all the paperwork as well, everything.
They do everything, literally. If you want a completely hands-off approach, you can even do it to the point where you say to them, listen, I don't like being disturbed, I'm a busy guy, up to X amount, just fix it. Be sensible. Be sensible with what you're fixing. Obviously, don't send someone around to fix a light bulb or screw it. Within reason, be sensible. Up to £300, just fix it and email me and tell me you fixed it. Like, you can literally have a completely hands-off approach where you do nothing except just the rent comes in every month, and when something get paid for, you give the green light.
Yes, mad. I like that.
And even with that, a lot of the time, depending on the agent and how the rent's being paid, they can take it from the rent as well.
Yeah.
So if the rent comes in at 1,000 and the work's 300, they'll just send you 700 and pay this contractor 300 off the rent. So yeah, you're paying for it, but you're not paying.
Yeah.
Like out of your pocket. Yeah.
You're not physically
absorbing it.
Paying out of it. You're just receiving less rent that month. So, like I said, there's different ways that you can. There's different ways you can manage it to keep it convenient and to keep it simple.
So, would you recommend people from London and down south in general, I guess, to go up north? Or
again, it depends. Firstly, it depends on how much money you got.
Yeah. And
it depends on what your goals are. So the capital growth up north is not the same as the capital growth here. It's not to say you can't get capital growth up there. It's just, it's in London, it's a given. If you own a property for 10 years, you will almost certainly, barring extreme circumstances at the time that you decide to sell, but you will almost certainly have made a good percentage. Yeah. Whereas if you own a property in Liverpool, you might not have. Because a lot of the time what you'll see, rents will go up there, but the capital growth might not, or not as quickly as the rent is going up. So you make money, you're buying there for cash flow. You're buying there for income. You're not buying there to buy for 50 and sell for 100. It just doesn't work like that. Whereas in London, if you buy for 4, it's not unrealistic to think that you're going to sell it for 6.
So if you're trying to scale your property portfolio, I guess, to, I don't, let's say a million.
Yeah.
Would you suggest buying down south and going for the appreciation, or up north and cash flow, and then because they're cheaper, I guess you can keep buying more?
It depends how aggressive you can be.
Yeah.
Depends how you can be. It depends how aggressive you can be and how much money you've got. London, you're going to make the money on capital growth way quicker, quicker. And you've got one property, as opposed to you buy a house in London you buy a place in London for 500 grand at 25% down. That's 125 down. If you really, really tried, for 125, you could buy 6 or 7 places in country with 15 grand down, 60 grand flat, 60 grand houses, 60 grand 2-bed house. You could probably end up with 6 or 7 of them after fees. So
it's a big difference.
Yeah, but the capital growth on those 6 or 7 isn't going to be anywhere near what the capital growth is on the one in London. You've got more work to do because you're managing 6 or 7. But
what's the cash flow difference?
London, you rarely make. A lot of landlords in London don't make money on a monthly basis. You make money on capital growth. You don't make money on the rental income, because you're putting down 25% or 500 grand. So you're not putting down 25% of 70 grand or 80. Put down 25% of 80 grand. You're borrowing 60 grand. 60 grand over 25 years, 30-year mortgage it's going to be low. On an interest only, it's going to be 100 or 2, and then your rent's 5. So you're grossing you're grossing 200-300. So whereas in London, you're let's keep it simple. Your mortgage is 1,000. You might get 1,200, 1,100. And then London's agency is a lot more expensive, so you have to pay 15% managed. at which point they're taking a lot of that cash flow off. So of course landlords make money on income in London, but I just mean as it's not generally what the purpose of it is here.
Yeah.
A lot of the time it's, if I can make a little bit on top, £50, £100, £200, then amazing. But I'm planning to hold this and sell it for 200 grand more, because for me to make 200, it only needs to go up 50%.
Yeah.
Which is it's not unachievable over a stretch. That's not unachievable. Whereas, like I say, going up 50% in Liverpool, it goes from 60 to 90. So you've made 30, which is cool, but it's not even the guarantee that it's going to go up 50%, or it's not even highly likely it's going to go up 50%. Unless, like I said, unless you get, not to say it can't, but unless you get lucky and you get into an area before it's regenerated.
Well, say you're up north, right? So then you're getting, what you were saying, 200-300 property. There was six properties. Let's say you're clearing 2K.
Yeah.
So then by the end of the year, you could have, realistically, you could have enough for another one and a half properties, maybe.
Yeah. But we're talking about gross.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. True.
That's 500 rent, 200 mortgage. Again, I'm just doing basic figures to keep it simple. 500 rent, 200 mortgage, £50 a month for the agent. So you're grossing 250.
Yeah.
So if you've got 5, you're grossing a fair amount over the year, but net after taxes, landlord taxes aren't incredibly friendly, to say the least. So
you want to touch on that quickly? Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you're taxed on the gross amount, not the net amount.
Yeah, essentially. So you can offset different things off the tax, fees and works, etc. Certain different things you can offset against what you're taxed. But ultimately, it's just gradually got more difficult over the years. It's gradually getting more difficult for landlords to make a monthly income off it, which is, again, it depends on who you're speaking to, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it was maybe done with the idea was floated with a good intention. From a tenant perspective, it was floated with a good intention, but it's almost had a back effect on the tenants, because same with any business. If the cost of, as we're seeing right now, if the cost of something goes up, then the price of something goes up.
Yeah.
If it cost me £1 last year, and I was selling it for £2 last year, if it cost me £1 and the price goes up to £1.50, I'm not still selling it for £2. It for £2.50 now. So I'm never going to eat the cost. Me as the business owner, or me as the landlord, I'm never eating the cost. You're always going to eat the cost. The consumer will always eat the cost. Unfortunately, the consumer will always eat the cost. So anything that the landlords have to, any fees the landlords have to face, ultimately, whether it's straightforward or backhanded, generally gets passed down the hill.
All right. Anything new in the property game that you've noticed in the last 6 to 12 months?
But the sales market last year was one of the busiest it's ever been. It's because of the stamp duty holiday. Everybody was which, again, if you take in what I've just said, it was you remove the stamp duty for first time buyers, and then the prices shoot up. So you're paying for it. You're still paying, maybe not the exact amount, but there's no way to quantify exactly.
Invisible cost.
Pay. Exactly. You would. There's no calculation to quantify exactly how much you were going to pay, or how much this property would have been put on the market without stamp duty or without the peak market. So there's no way to actually know. But it's a similar theory to if something's £20 with free delivery, or £15 with £5 delivery.
Yeah.
Same thing, yeah.
the £20 with free delivery sounds nicer than £15 with £5 delivery, but ultimately it's £20. And it's a similar theory to that. So the sales market was really good. It's faded off now, but then the lettings market this year was one of it was the best by far, easily. It was you couldn't overprice a property if you tried. Again, within reason, but if you're trying, you couldn't overprice a property that you were just putting them on from.
Why is the demand so high then? Or what's changed?
There's so few properties. The rental, the property numbers for lettings, especially property numbers, are so low. Just across the board, property numbers are so low that this is basic economics. If the supply but the demand is still there, because summer's the busiest time. Lettings is seasonal, so sales is they have seasons, but sales is less seasonal than lettings. Lettings is very so from March to probably end of September, beginning of October. That's the lettings. That's like letting season, and summer being the best. June, July, August, September being the peak month.
Students or
no? It's to be honest with you, I don't know. It's just what happens. Is people it's when the weather's nice, people window shop. You don't window shop in the rain. You don't window shop in the snow.
True.
When it's dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you leave when you need to leave. As in, I'm leaving in December if my landlord kicks me out in December. But I'm not volunteering to leave my house in December. I'm not volunteering to go around looking at 10, 15, 20 properties in December or January. It's just not sensible to do. So, whereas in summer, you might say, I want a garden, or I want some outdoor space, or I want a bigger bedroom. And if I find something, then great. If I don't find something, it was a nice day out. The weather was nice. We went to the pub afterwards. Like it was something to do on the Saturday. Like it was cool. So that's the only logic that there really is for why there's more applicants. But then there's usually properties to match the applicants. Whereas now, like I said, because the supply is low, but the demand is the same normal summer demand. That's what pushed the prices up for.
And what's affected the supply?
Again, like I said, there's no pinpoint one answer. I think the taxes fully kicking in now has affected it. Landlords, there's more landlords selling than usual. Just cost of living. People aren't. If I don't need to move again, people aren't willy-nilly spending money just unnecessarily. Removal costs and having to pay, because ultimately you need to think when you rent a new place, if you give your property back how you received it, you get your deposit back, but you've got 10 weeks worth of deposit up in limbo for a period of time. You've got 5 weeks from your current place, and then you have to pay a new 5 weeks for the new place, and you don't get your first 5 weeks back for another week or two. So you've got 10 weeks worth of rent up in limbo. You have to pay a month's rent in advance. So in London, it can cost you 4K, let's say, to move into a new place, plus removal costs, or you might need new furniture to fit into your new place because your sofa's too big or too small, or your bed's too big or too small, or whatever it is. And that's a luxury. It's a luxury, and people now don't need luxuries. It's not where the majority of the economy is right now. Is not in a luxury. That's not where it is. So there's that. Renewal rates are the highest that they've been. Again, probably in line with those things, because you may be able to renew at a slightly cheaper price than if you were to get it on market. If you've built a relationship with your landlord over the years, you could, if it's worth 19 and you're paying 17, you might agree on 18.50. I've been a good tenant. I paid my rent. You help me out. I'll help you out. That kind of thing. So there's that. So there's never a pinpoint answer, because it's not in anybody's interest to say that it's their fault or there's one reason. So yeah, that's what I'd say is a mixed bag. But then from a landlord's perspective, it's great, which is ultimately what well, at least us three, and I'm assuming the people listening would want to be, is you ultimately want to be a landlord. So from a landlord's perspective, it's brilliant because interest rates are going up, but rents are going up in line with interest rates.
But how long do you see this going on for? Can you see it tailing off, or
what, the rents going up?
Rents, rents, even rent and house prices.
Rents have already softened. But when I say softened, it's a funny one. So say if you were getting 1,500 last year, and at the beginning of this year, kind of February, March, when it was peaked, you would maybe put it on at 18, and then now it's softened and you're at 17.
Yeah, you're still up.
You're still up 200. So you can either see it as I'm down 100 from the peak, I should have been 4 or 5 months earlier, or you can see it as I'm still up 200. So it's like it's like anything. It's like stock market. It's like anything. It doesn't just run. It's never going to stay there. It doesn't run. It's never going to get to the top and peak and just stay there. People aren't going to continue forever to just pay you unrealistic prices. It just doesn't happen. So you take it while you can, and if you're lucky enough that your tenancy comes up available in those peak times, then you take advantage of it. If you're renting it today, you're still up from last year. You will get more rent than you did last year, and a fair amount more, probably.
And you see it crashing.
8%.
People have spoken about a crash, but
crash is difficult in property. Crash is difficult in property because it's not live. The data you get in property is not the stock market. The stock market, I can tell you what Apple is at. I can tell you the exact price of Apple at 12 o'clock, and I can tell you completely different price at 12:05 and 12:10 and 12:15. Property is not live data. It's based off data that's generally a few months old. If you look at most of the factual data that comes out about prices of property, it's usually a couple of months old, because it's based off, at least sales properties, it's based off land ridges. It's based off sold properties, and properties might sell. The sale might be agreed in May, but it doesn't complete until September. So how are we basing the data off? Are we basing the data off when it was agreed or when it was sold? So it's I don't know. I don't think there's going to be a massive crash, but when I say massive crashes, it's relative. If you bought something at 600 and it goes down to 500, that's a massive crash for you. You lost 100 grand, or I say you lost 100 grand. You're down 100 grand. The value of your property is down 100 grand. So it's for something to crash, there has to be major catalysts for it, and there's a lot of catalysts right now, and people don't necessarily seem to care. But every year there's a property crash. I say crash, a property crash. It's coming soon. You don't know. Like I said, you're never going to know, because there's no property doesn't move as quickly as other businesses or other sectors, stocks. So for example, property that moves nowhere near as quickly as that. So
if there is a crash,
pardon?
Let's just say there is a crash, make something, I don't know, let's say 20%.
Yeah.
Either of you planning to make any moves, or just wait and see what happens?
It depends. Depends at the time. There's no, like I said, I don't base my decisions off thinking that there might be a crash, or thinking this. If it's a good time to buy now, you research, you study. If you think it's a good time to buy, you buy. If you're planning to hold it for 10, 15, 20 years, of course you want it at the best possible price, but it's waiting for something that there's no way of knowing whether it's going to happen. So for instance, if you were in 2020, you would assume COVID would cause a crash, and it done the complete opposite. So you would have said, this is my time, this is what I've been waiting for. I've been waiting for this crash that's about to happen. The whole world's closed. Properties have to crash. We couldn't even do viewings. We weren't even allowed to do viewings. So how can the market go up fully when you can't even do viewings? We weren't
crazy,
allowed.
Man.
You weren't allowed. You weren't allowed to mix. You weren't allowed to mix bubbles.
Nuts.
So we couldn't do viewings properly. Tenant had to leave. Tenant had to go stand in the hallway. Tenant had to stand in the garden. You had to do video viewings. You had to do that, and the market went nuts. So if you were sat there
crazy.
waiting for this crash that you thought was going to happen, the prices from 2020 are this 25% up from where they were pre-COVID. So you were waiting for something and ended up now it's 100 grand more. Now you need 100 grand more to get in. So it's relative, and like you said, tomorrow could start a crash and then it comes back down 25%. You don't know. There's no it's a different game to stock. It's a different game to stocks.
Yeah. From my point of view, I'm just gonna buy regardless of crash or no crash. Like
Exactly.
even when I bought my house, it was like pretty high, to be honest. But I was like, well, I need to buy a house. I've got the cash to do it. I might not have the cash in 6 months, so let me make a move.
Yeah.
That's it. It's again. I know I keep referring to stocks, but it's because it's what we all know, and it's a lot more straightforward than property. If you're planning to hold Apple for 10 years, if you get it at 160 or 150, this is whatever. No, you're not gonna
When I
remember.
bought Apple the other day, I thought it was high, and then the next week it was like $10 higher. I was like, damn, that was actually a good buy. But at the time, it was like all-time high.
You're not gonna know if my broker didn't have the function of telling me what my average buy price was when I first bought Apple. I couldn't even tell you a number close to what I bought it for. I had no idea. It just is Apple, so I bought it. Or it's Google, so I bought it.
But you also probably didn't even care as well. Like, it is what it is.
No,
you're gonna hold it regardless.
I just bought it.
Like,
I've bought it, and I'm gonna hold it. There's no it doesn't make a huge difference. So of course with property it's different because you're talking about much larger sums. Well, depending on how much you're buying at once, but you're generally talking about much larger sums, and it's something that, like I said, because there's no live chart of it, you can't see your house price going up daily. Whereas if you could see your house price going up daily, then probably affect prices of houses a lot more. Whereas because you can't see your house price going up daily, weekly, or monthly, you base it off comparables. So you go on Rightmove, you look at, okay, well, my road, next road, the road next to that, 2 beds. I've got a 2 bed, they've got a 2 bed, theirs is sold for 400, I bought mine for 300, so I will assume that mine is close to 4. You're basing it off comparables as opposed to exact data, whereas it's nuanced. The person's child might live on that road, so they're happy to overpay for that road because they want to be next to their grandkids, for instance. That's not unheard of, that somebody overpays for something because there's a very, very, very specific reason why this house or this property makes exact sense for them. Their grandkids are there, they work 2 minutes away, there's some kind of sentimental value, the very good schools are next to it. You can't.
And that boosts the price of your property though, if let's just say everyone around you is going up. Even if you don't have the same property.
No, it doesn't matter. If you see, I don't know, you probably don't know it because of where you are in London. So Putney, for instance, is a good example. Putney has there's a road in Putney, the main road in Putney, and it's full of new builds now. Just everywhere is new builds. So new builds obviously command the highest priced rent. So they're not the best yield, but they command the highest price rent. So what happens is, if you can rent a 1 bed for 1,800, let's say, a month, you have to be a certain caliber of tenant to be able to afford a 1 bed for 1,800. So now the caliber and the quality of tenant increases. So because the caliber and quality of the tenant has increased, now I want to be around, even if I can't afford 1,800 for a 1 bed, I want to be around people that can afford 1,800 for a 1 bed, because people that can afford 1,800 for a 1 bed are a certain caliber of tenant. The crime's lower. There's less issues. You're slightly. Of course, it's not any direct science, but you are deemed by society as rightly or wrongly is subjective, but you're deemed by society as a higher class citizen because you're middle class or upper class. So people naturally want to be around that. So
you pay for convenience. I was saying to my brethren the other day, like, you actually pay for convenience. Like, he's moved down to Surrey, like Isha, and he's like, you pay to be around nice people. I live in West
Exactly.
Hampstead. I pay to be around like no roadmen, basically.
That's what I'm
You
saying.
know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. So it's relative. Whereas if West Hampstead was full of shootings and drugs and stabbings and the crime rate was one of the highest in London, you wouldn't pay
I'm not trying to
for
be
a
there.
one
Yeah.
bed. I don't know what you're paying, but I'm saying you wouldn't pay
exactly.
1,800 for a one bed. So it's because you know there's affluent people there, and there's a higher class of citizen there. Again, by society standards, it's like, well, I want to be around that because then I'll feel safer and I'll feel better about myself. So that naturally then pushed up the prices of Putney that are nothing to do with new builds, the conversions and the period properties around the corner. That's pushed those prices up because, like I said, I can't afford 1,800 for a one bed, but I can afford 1,500 for a one bed. So I'll take the 1,500 one bed close to the people who can afford 1,800. So yeah, that has a massive knock-on effect. That's why I say if you're going to countryside, you don't necessarily need to buy. I don't particularly personally, I don't agree with new builds anyway. Buying new builds, I don't particularly think they're good investments. But you buy around the new build. I don't need to buy the new build. I can buy around the new build, and the new build will just push the value of mine up without me actually paying the price of the new build. What's the reason for me not liking new builds as an investment?
Yeah.
It's because they're not good investments. No, there's
everyone is drawn to them because of how they look. So
when you buy a new build, though, you're
people are naturally drawn to something that's new and shiny.
Yeah.
You're naturally drawn to something that's new and shiny. My biggest issue with new builds is that the main selling point is that it's new, and as soon as it's not new, then I don't have a selling point. That's my biggest issue with new builds. In that the selling point of a Victorian house is that it's Victorian. Always Victorian. It's going to be Victorian today, tomorrow, in 10 years, 100 years is a Victorian house, because the selling point is that it's a Victorian house, and Victorian is a period. The selling point of my property being new is as soon as there's another building, like take the Putney, what I was telling you, Upper Richmond Road. If you bought the first new build there, when you bought it, it was a new build. You have the only new build in Putney, and now there's 10 other new builds within a quarter of a mile of you. You now have the oldest new build. So
do they lose their price once the new ones come in?
Well, they have to lose value. It's like, okay, think of it from another perspective. What do you buy new and sell it for used at a higher price? When you buy a car, you don't buy a new car and then sell it. Pardon?
Watches.
Watches. No. But if you buy a Daytona, and you wear it for 20 years, and you get 20 years of wear and tear. If you keep it brand new, of course, but I'm saying if you get 20 years of wear and tear, you're not selling the Daytona for more than you bought it for. In some circumstances, maybe a Daytona is the wrong one. In some circumstances, but the majority.
I know what you're getting at. Yeah. If the conditions are the same, you'll sell for more. If you mash it up, it ain't gonna be worth much.
Well, because it's you paid 30 for the Daytona or whatever they cost now. You paid 30 for the Daytona because it was new. If you get 20 years of wear and tear on the Daytona and then try and sell it for 30, it's not worth 30 anymore because it's not new. If you buy a car, it's not new. I bought the car because it was new, so the price was based off it being new. So it's whereas when you have classic cars, you see people pay millions for classic cars because the selling point is that it's classic. So it will always be classic. It's always going to be a classic car. Whereas my Golf is not a classic car; it's a new car. You see what I'm saying? So that's what my biggest issue is with new builds. I don't particularly like the yields either. I don't like the way I prefer character in a property. Again, that's just personal preference. Some people like new. I like modern, but with character. I like high ceilings. I like exposed brick. I like fireplaces. I like things like that, which you can't get in a new build. Generally, you don't generally get in a new build development. So that's the things I like. So yeah, it's relative though. That's just my personal opinion. There's nothing wrong with buying new builds. From a mass, it's just, if you're asking me would I buy one, I'd say no.
The build quality is shabby in a lot of new builds as well. Like I've been to see a few when I was.
And to be fair, you can get good warranties and there's ones that you can go towards if you do the research. You can find better developers than others. But like I said, it's more for me that I don't like the selling point being something that is not a forever selling point. High ceilings will always be high. Fireplaces will always be fireplaces. Gardens will always be gardens. Conversion period properties, Victorian, Georgian, Edwardian, they will always be. And of course, I don't know what era we're in now, but of course, in 100 years, our era might be a thing. But I don't know that. I know Victorian is a thing. I know Edwardian's a thing. I know Georgian's a thing. So I'm buying it on the selling point that doesn't leave me. Whereas, like I said, a new build selling point will leave me the second it's not new. The new build selling point leaves me. So but again, that's just, it doesn't mean that you can't make money off them if you do refurbs, and if yours is certain development, or you've got waterfront new builds, then that's maybe different. That might change things. That might change my opinion. But like I said, it's all very, because I've seen quite a lot of different scenarios. I have to answer with, there isn't a one size fits all. For me, at least, in most things in my life, there isn't a one size fits all. Because like I said, if you get in Wandsworth, there's a massive development next to the river. So if you get something with unobstructed river views in a new build, then this is a different conversation.
Right.
It's relative.
Well, I think I was supposed to ask these questions, but I think we skipped over it. Let me go back to them. All right. So number one.
All right, we'll keep it short and sweet.
Have you ever considered doing rent to rent?
No.
If yes.
No.
All right.
No.
That's a no, then. All right. What
I was
is
going
rent
to
to
suggest, when you said you had 20 bags to work with, I was going to say I'd do rent to rent, because I think with 20 bags, even up north, you're gonna get a little bit techie. So I was going to suggest rent to rent, but me personally, if I had the capital, I wouldn't do rent to rent. For me, that would be like a last resort. If I didn't, say I only had like 15 grand, then maybe I'd do rent to rent. Other than that, I wouldn't really do it. I'd look at it more just to build cash flow, to go into like a standard buy to let, rather than like a long-term strategy to make money.
Has he frozen for you?
Yeah, he's frozen, yeah. 18, looking pretty, man. Oh man.
Wait, let me see if he's coming back.
$18 ran out of 3G.
Oh, maybe his phone died or something. I don't know.
Yeah, his phone must have died. I think one of the questions I asked as well was like the buy-to-let empire.
Yeah, we'll get back to that one next. I think.
Yeah. We kind of answered that though, I guess. Like 18 answered it, and then I gave my input.
Hello? I don't know if you're talking, but we can't hear you, man.
$18, are you there?
Anyway, do you want to answer what's rent to rent? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, rent to rent. Rent to rent is essentially where you take on the rental agreement for a property. So say like you find a 3-bed house, the rent's $2,000. You take it on at $2,000, but then you say you agree previously before you take it on for $2,000. You say to the landlord, "Look, man, I'm going to sublet this out. I'm going to rent the rooms out. Are you happy with that?" He'll be like, "Yeah, sure," but he might ask for, let's say, 6 months up front. So you might have to put down $12,000 up front just to make him feel comfortable. What you're then going to do is you're going to rent the room. Yeah, sure. So you're going to rent the rooms out, right? So you say it's a 3-bed. You turn the downstairs front room. You maybe add a stud wall in there. You make it into another bedroom. So now it's a 4-bed, right?
Yeah.
you're going to be charging like £700 for each of the rooms. So like 7 times 4, you're making what, 2,800. You're paying the landlord, what did I say, £2,000? It's probably less than £2,000. But let's say £2,000, and then you're going to cover all the bills in the place. So let's say the bills are, I don't know, £250. Let's say, and then you're making, what's that, 450? You're making 450 profit a month on that property, all in, once you paid everything. So you pay the landlord, you pay the bills, you're making 450. That's a bad example. That would be a good deal, rent to rent deal. But basically, the goal is that in a rent to rent deal, you take on the tenure for a whole property, and then you basically sublet the rooms out, and you aim to make like a 750 minimum, I think, from each property. So say you're doing that, and you've got a few of them. Say you got like, I don't know, 3 properties. Now you're making what, 2,250 from doing the same thing. But
what's the downside with that though, or potential downside?
The downside is, if there's any vacancies or where someone leaves, for example, you can't quickly get someone back in. You have to cover the rental income to the landlord regardless, right? You just paid them $12,000 up front. Your goal now is to recoup your money as quickly as possible. So if you have any shortfalls, you ain't going to be making your money back quickly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it gets tricky.
Yeah. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can't see you, but can hear you.
No, my
Can't see you, but we can hear you.
No, my phone's bugging. It said it was overheated.
Oh man, too much fire today, man. That's
Them ones, no, it's not working. Yes, I can't see it. It's not working. No, sorry to your original question. I've never considered doing rent to rent. It's I'll leave that to the.
Any reason why not?
No, I'll leave that to the. I'll leave that to the property gurus that make that money. I'll leave that to the property gurus.
The one we came across.
Pardon?
One we came across. No names.
Yeah. I'll leave that to the property gurus that print money.
That was a mad case, man.
That's not my. No, it's listen. If it works, if it works and somebody makes money off it, then I'm pro people making money. I don't think it's as easy as people make out it is, or straightforward to say it's easy. I don't think it's as straightforward as people make out it is. But if you figured out how to get it to work, like I said, I actually know a couple of people that do it very successfully. I know a couple of people that run successful businesses, like legitimate businesses doing it, not just Instagram. I have a rent to rent. I actually know a few people that run successful limited companies doing it.
Why do you think people go down that route then? Like, what's the benefit of it?
It's low cost.
Okay.
It's low cost. If it's buying for one and selling for two.
It's arbitrage essentially, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like what we do.
It's buying for one and selling for two. If I can find a place at 1,500, put down £1,500 a month in advance, and pay the 5-week security deposit, let's $3,500 in, let's call it, and then I can put a stud wall up in the front room to make it a 4 or 5 bed. Yeah, put a stud wall up in the front room to make it a 4 or 5 bed, and rent each room out for 500. Then I'm at $2,500. I give the landlord their 1,500. I keep 1,000. Like I said, in its headline simplest form, yes, it's very straightforward. It's the same as saying, well, why don't you just buy houses for
I was just about to ask that. I'm thinking, why wouldn't you just cop a yard in full and do it?
That's what I'm saying.
It's maybe because you don't have to.
I know, but you don't have the capital. No. If you're starting out with right to rents, you're probably doing it because you don't have the capital. You don't do right to rents if you've got 100, 200 grand to spend on properties. You do right to rent. You do rent to rents if you've got a couple thousand. Say you've a couple thousand and you're trying to get into properties. It's not. It depends on who you're speaking to. Of course, you're dealing with property, but it's not. You're not getting into property. You're just taking something that somebody owns and giving it and renting it to somebody else. So it's not the traditional way of saying that you're in property, but it's not to say you can't make money, but it's been overly simplified. The same way that why don't you just buy a house for half the price it's worth, and then paint it and it will be worth 50% more. It will be worth 100% more, and now I've made 50 grand from doing nothing, and I sold it, and I can do that 10 times a month and do that, and you're a millionaire. It's again,
Crazy.
it's heavily simplified. It's heavily simplified, and unfortunately, it just doesn't work like that. And it's actually a business. You need to run it as a business. It's not a side. It's not something that you do on the side. It's something that's very time consuming.
So that's a no from both of you then. So,
Yes, it's a no from me.
Yeah,
But
it depends on your capital,
I'm not,
right? If you,
yeah, I will say, no, I will say, if you're just wanting to just make some extra money, again, you're 18 and you just want to do it, you have to do it properly, because if you do it incorrectly, again, what you're not hearing is that when you can't afford to pay the rent and you don't have tenants, or the tenants stop paying the rent, the property's in your name.
Yeah.
So any rent that's not paid is your rent. That's your rent that's not paid. That's your bills that aren't paid. And cost of living goes up and bills are included. You pay that rent.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got tenants in contracts at 500, including bills, and then the bills go up 500 a month for all of them, you eat that cost. So like I said, it's the same as any business. There's pluses and minuses to it. I'm actually messing about it. I'm against it for me, but I'm not fully against it for certain. For if you're just trying to get started in something and just trying to make some extra money, then I'm not actually against it.
Do you think landlords will give those people that are doing that like a discount then, if they can assure? Because they can basically assure.
No, landlords don't like it.
Oh.
This is what I'm trying to say, where it's the same response as, oh, well, why don't we just buy properties at half price?
Yeah.
Is that, well, because it's very, very, very difficult to find an owner that's willing to sell it at half price. It's very difficult to find an owner that's willing to sell it under what it's worth. There's very few landlords. There's very few people that you can say, I'm going to rent it off you for £1,500.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make 2,500 on it. Even if I don't want to do your method, it's very difficult for me to say to you, I'm going to make more off the thing that's yours. Most people generally don't want that. Most people don't want you turning their living room into bedrooms. Most people don't want random strangers in their properties, because the contract is with me. The contract is not with the 5 people I put in the property. So I don't even know the people living in my property. I can't tell you any of their name, because that's not who my contract is with. So I don't know who they are. Contracts with you, and you find people. So again, it's nowhere near as straightforward as walk into the estate agent, rent every property that they've got on the market, and just throw all of these tenants in who are just looking for random places. Landlords love it because they get it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Otherwise there would be no tenants. There would just be rent to rent properties.
All right, last one. What is the best way to start a B2L empire?
Figuring out your strategy is what I would say is the most important thing, because it's not a liquid asset. So it's very difficult to change strategy mid-move. It's not like, again, I'll come back to stocks. It's not like stocks. If you buy growth stocks, and then if you buy tech stocks, for instance, and then it's like, okay, tech's not working. It's not. So I'll go to energy. You can sell tech and buy energy in like 6 seconds. You can't do that with properties. So if you think that you want cash flow, and then you realize that you don't want cash flow, you want capital growth, that's a long process to get in. That's a long process to get out of this and into this. It's a long process to get out of this method into this strategy, and vice versa. So it's not a liquid, or it is liquid, but it's not incredibly liquid. It's months long process to get in and out of properties. So figure out what you actually want to do and what you think. Of course, things change and you might need to divert. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you can't divert. I'm saying you need to be a lot more calculated and try and make the decision a lot quicker. A lot more. But it needs to be a lot more thought out. Not as quick. it needs to be a lot more thought out, because, like I said, it's that would be the main thing that I would say, on top of the obvious of having money, which is just fairly basic. But yeah, that's what I would say, is figure out what your actual method is, whether it's close to you, whether it's developments, whether it's capital growth, whether it's cash flow, whether it's HMOs, whether it's students. Just do it and stick with it. And then, yeah, that's probably the best way.
All right. Yeah, that was the final one, man.
Well, yeah, that's pretty. I think that's pretty much the advice I would give to somebody on that one. I can't really think. Well, that's the most sensible advice, other than, like I said, other than just make sure that make sure that you understand what you're actually doing. Again, because you don't just have the potential to lose money, you have the potential to ruin credit.
Yeah.
Which is arguably more important than money.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's arguably more important than money. So you have a potential to ruin both things. You have a potential to lose money getting it wrong. If you try and jump, like you were saying earlier, Rambo, if you try and jump into developments and you don't actually understand developments, you have a potential to lose money or mess up your credit. If you're getting bridging loans, if you're overextending yourself, if you're not realizing how much or how long or how expensive works are going to be, because works rarely ever come in for what they actually think worth, what you actually think they're going to come in at. So is different layers to it and different levels to it, but no, it's not as much as people may want to make out there, it's not a think about it yesterday and do it today type of situation.
Yeah, no, 100%.
One that just came to me, actually. What are other ways you could get into the property game? Because I think we discussed buy-to-lets, developments. Is there anything else that I'm missing?
No, barrier to entry is high. Barrier to entry on stocks is high. It's one of the highest. It's one of barrier to entry on property. Sorry, barrier to entry on property is one of the highest barriers to entry, because you actually need a fair amount of money to do it properly. You need a fair amount of money, and again, there's different methods that you can do within the methods. So there's different versions of buy-to-lets. There's different versions of developments. There's different versions of things, but they're all subheadings. As a heading, the standard way that people get into property is buy it and rent it, or buy it and flip it. Or build it and flip it. Develop it and flip it. Is develop it and rent it. But there's various different schemes and things like that. But they're all like I said, they're all subdivisions of buying properties and renting them, building properties and renting them, buying properties and selling them, or building properties and selling them. They're just subdivisions. They're subdivisions of the same thing.
Do you consider REITs? Do you two consider REITs as part of the property game, or not really?
More stocks, I'd say.
Huh?
Yeah, I'd say they're more stocks for me. That I don't really see that as property. It's like hands-on property, but it's not property.
Yeah, it's like saying if you own Apple that you're invested, that you're involved in selling phones.
Yeah.
Sell phones. If you work at Car Phone Warehouse, you sell phones. If you invest in Apple sell phones, and I invest in a company that sells phones, but it's nothing to do with me. So again, it sounds cool, sounds like a thing. You're investing in companies that invest in properties, and a lot of the time REITs aren't actual properties. So it's hospitality sector, it's hotels, it's hospitals, it's different scenarios. And me owning AMT doesn't mean I own hospitals. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't. It's not. It's not. It's a very backwards way of saying that you own property. So yes, you technically do, but it's a backwards thing of doing it. You've got no control over it. No, they're good. They're a separate thing that are good for dividends. So if you're looking for dividends, then REITs make sense. If you're looking for as a stock, if you're looking for property, then you just buy properties themselves.
One of the other methods of getting this property out is this is like divides people, but I've seen like deal sourcing where you package up a deal for someone and sell it on.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, it's not for me personally, but I know that some people get into that, junior people or people that are getting their feet wet, etc. So that's just another avenue.
What does it mean exactly?
So like deal sourcing, so say like you have, I don't know, 50 grand to invest in property, but you don't have the time to be like phoning up estate agents, looking for deals, looking for rundown properties that you can do up. Essentially properties where it's actually a deal, not just like I'm buying it and just making no money, like to buy it, refurb it, make money, sell it, whatever, BRRR, whatever strategy you want to do. So basically there's a guy or a female who has all the time in the world and basically wants to find these deals for you and then sell that deal for you, for a price. So like I might find a deal in Liverpool that, you know, you can make, I don't know, 20% on, plus you're going to make like rental income, BRR basically, BRR. And I'll package it up to you and say, look, give me $4,000 and it's yours.
Okay.
And I've just found you a house that will save you, I don't know, a couple of days or a couple of weeks or a couple of months of fee you're looking for. I've got a ready-made deal for you to go into. Then you just go take it off my hands and just deal with it, essentially.
Kind of like leads then, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, like leads, exactly. Just same thing as leads.
Yeah, that one I can't talk on. I don't have any I don't have any experience in it or doing it, or I don't know anyone who's done it. Personally, I don't personally know anyone who's done it successfully, so that's not something I know it's done, but it's not something that I'm well versed in at all. But it's just it's like I said, there's not hacks.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, man. A lot of people are trying to get in the game with no money down or as little money as possible. But
it doesn't work. There's no AMCs of property. There's no GameStops of property. It doesn't work. There's no Dogecoin of property. It's just not a thing. You don't. It's not. There isn't hacks. There's tricks and there's methods and there's slightly more. There's better ways for you to make money, of course, but there's no. It's just not, because it's the old traditional, like I said, it's not live. There's things that happen and people are selling their home, like where they've lived, where they've brought kids up, things like that. People don't just let that stuff go for half the price because then they can't afford a house where they're moving on to a house. The majority of people sell a house to buy a new house.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sell it for lower than what it's worth, because then I won't be able to buy my new house. So again, you need to look for, if you're looking at that, you need to look for distressed owners, distressed properties, probate properties, just stuff like that.
What's probate? For anyone that doesn't know,
probate is when somebody passes away, if there's no formal will in place. It's
okay.
Goes to probate, and then in that instance you may be able to get cheap properties because the son, let's say, is getting 300 grand that they didn't know that they were getting or wasn't expecting or wasn't paying much attention. So I'll just take it because I can't be bothered to deal with all of this. Again, my mum's dad or my dad's dad or something like that. So it's not a completely foolproof method, because again, if I can get 400 for something, I'm not going to sell it for 3. But there are some people that do. So things like that, like I said, you can get probates, you get distressed properties, you buy things that you can do developments on. So there's different things that you can do that you could technically call hacks. But when I say hacks, I mean 1,000% in a year, and I can make 5 times more rent than the average person can make. It's just not. It's not realistic, and it doesn't particularly happen in property.
Yeah.
If it sounds too good to be true,
in property, especially in property, because it doesn't happen. Like I said, if somebody, GameStop happened, AMC happened, Dogecoin happened. So those are things that there's always a nibble of it happening again. There's always, not with those specific ones, but with something else, that there might be a new GameStop. Well, there is. We saw the one the other day. I can't remember where it was. I think it was an Asian company.
HCB. Yeah. The IPO went nuts. Yeah,
exactly. So there's always one of those eventually in stocks. It's near impossible to figure out which one it is, but there is always one. Whereas, like I said, in property, you don't just buy and then all of a sudden it goes up 500%. It's just, yeah. So it's a much longer game. It's a much longer game, and it's definitely a forever game.
Yeah, facts.
Boy, I don't know. I've nearly an hour and a half. The time kind of flew, man.
Yeah, I missed the football for this.
And
That was good.
what was the score?
1-1.
Ooh,
Yeah, 1-1.
that's cost me, man.
Poor.
Ah,
Poor. But yeah, no, it's good. It's good. But yeah,
Yeah, it's good.
any comments, queries, questions? Always happy to answer.
yeah, we'll go again soon. But yeah, it was good to get the ball rolling.
Yeah. Cool.
100%.
Right then. Right.
Hey, thanks, man.
Cool. Have a good night,
All right.
guys.
Thanks,
You
guys.
too.
Take it easy, man. Speak soon.
Bye.